Let's bring in co-founder of Punchbowl News, Jon Bresnahan. Brez, I'm just wondering, I think there are those who are concerned that Trump wants this case disappeared as a conspiracy, and yet too many people are bought into what happened because there's a legitimate case here and there are real victims. I don't think you can make this go away. The president seems to be trying. I'm wondering what you think about the Speaker of the House. Does that carry any weight when ultimately these votes don't seem to push anything through?
I mean, I do. I think Johnson is under a lot of pressure from his conservatives. I mean, I think Johnson is reflecting the mood in his conference. What you guys didn't mention is last week there was a vote in the Senate Appropriations Committee when they did the Commerce, Justice, Science bill. This has to do with the FBI funding. They voted on an amendment to call for, Pondy to do a report on this and to release everything. And that was a unanimous vote. Senate Republicans voted for it. There's pressure inside both sides of the Capitol for more, the Trump administration to do more. This is not going away. I think there's rank and file pressure there. The leadership, like you said, has tried to tamp it down. And it's not going away because the base is upset about it. And these guys are very close to social media, on what talk radio and everything. They reflect what they hear. And this is what they're reflecting what it's hearing. And it's percolating up to it. This is a real problem for them. And it's not going away.
It's interesting when you hear President Trump, because when he talks about the people who want justice in this case and want transparency in this case, it's like, put it away. He calls them bad people. He's calling MAGA bad people. And you have people on the right who have very strong, powerful voices like Megyn Kelly, who says this is BS and there's BS here and she's not giving up.
No, and I think this is a problem for him. Also, if you look at the history of this case, it's Florida, which is the heart of Republicanism now. The case came out in 2008. There was this plea deal that in the end of the Bush administration, or Republican administration, there was a plea deal that there was a lot of criticism that Epstein got off really easy. And the remarkable thing is that kept going for a decade after that. And then Epstein tried to be rehabilitated, and there was a lot of powerful figures who remained in his orbit. And then this was the base. This was average Americans were upset about what happened, and this powerful man with powerful friends getting away with crimes, and then he got a sweetheart deal, and this came out, and of course his death happened during the Trump administration. There's no place for Republicans to hide on this. They can't hide behind Obama. They can't hide behind the Democrats. This happened on the Republicans' watch. There's no place for Trump to go on this. He's going to have to give them something on this.
David, we can remind people that Pizzagate, that people will remember when a man went into a pizza shop in Washington, D.C. and fired actual shots, was based on another conspiracy theory that pedophiles and children were being held in the basement of a pizza shop in Washington. That wasn't true, but it just gets to this larger idea that you kind of laid out a minute ago, this working theory that America is governed by a ruling class of pedophiles. So for the people who are banging the drum so hard and they want to see files that Pam Bondi says don't exist, or a client list that she says doesn't exist, what do they expect to see if something does come to light? If everything is made public, what is their suspicion about what will be revealed in there?
So I would say there's a small version of sort of the Epstein theory and the big version of the Epstein theory. The small version, I think, is in some ways kind of legitimate. I mean, Mika said it very well just a moment ago. You do have, unlike the QAnon theory, unlike Pizzagate, you have very real, very grim crimes here around which there is, frankly, a lot of mystery. Why was he so well connected? All of those extremely well connected people that flew with him on his jet, that went with him on his private island, what did they see? What did they do? There are a lot of questions swirling around this case that I do think are legitimate questions about the case. That's what you would call sort of the small version of Epstein. The big version of Epstein really doesn't have questions, to be honest. It has convictions. And the conviction is that Epstein was at the epicenter of a global pedophilia ring that has pulled in everyone that's come in contact with, that is a tip of an iceberg. It's not that we don't even know the full extent of the iceberg, that it's the tip of the iceberg. And so, therefore, if you dug into Epstein, you would rip open it'd be like lifting the rock, on the entire ruling class of the United States of America. So there's small and then there's big. And in the small version, well, look, I share a lot of questions about some of the weird elements of here. I mean, it is very strange that the most famous federal prisoner commits suicide so immediately and with such ease. I'm not going to say he didn't kill himself, but how did this happen? Why did this happen?
Right.
These are questions that are legitimate. It's legitimate to ask all of those people he's connected with, what did they see? What did they know? You know, Donald Trump had years of interactions with Epstein, has praised Epstein publicly in the past. What did he see? What did he know? And in that sense, he's always been a very odd vehicle to sort of bring the Epstein matter to a closure, because he was right there with Epstein during some of those partying days years ago. I mean, you've got the videos, you've got the photographs. And so I do absolutely understand Americans who want to know more about this. There is something real that happened here, a series of very real crimes committed by one of the most connected people in the world. So yeah, let's have more information. Now, that big version starts to then verge on the QAnon idea of the whole ruling class in the grips of a pedophile ring, or the whole ruling class being motivated by that. And there's one other element here that I've not seen people talk about, and that is the role of religious prophecy here. So it is also a number of these very deep, hardcore MAGA people. They don't just operate under this conviction that there's a ring of pedophiles. They also operate under this conviction that God appointed Trump to bring all these people to justice. And so this is creating an enormous amount of cognitive dissonance. And let's also not forget how many of these key MAGA figures spent years stoking it and saying, it's there, it's being suppressed by the Democrats. When it comes out, it's going to be terrible for the Democratic Party. And even as recently as this Fox interview, where Bondi had said, well, it's on my desk. And she now says she was talking about the Epstein case file and not a list, but she was asked about a list. And so you have this MAGA, all of a sudden it's in this position of understanding that the administration either has not been honest with them, has used their fears and concerns to gain their support. So it's either not been honest, or it's part of a cover-up. You see this all over social media. Two options: they lied to us, or they're part of it. And after some of the rhetoric you saw from Patel, from Bongino, from Vance, from Bondi, you understand why they feel lied to right now, or in the worst alternative of the cover-up. And so this is very deeply emotionally impacting people. And when you understand MAGA, you understand why.
Well, also, if you're, a citizen of this country or a reporter and you want answers, this doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. Joe was saying back in 2016, this was bizarre. This was years before he was arrested, that this situation was bizarre. And there are reporters who had been following this case and said that this would be the biggest child sex trafficking, child sexual abuse case in this country has ever seen. And yet it's covered up for different reasons. Prince Andrew's involved, and the different interests are involved, and it keeps getting tamped down. Now you have Bondi yesterday, wooden, just saying in a very kind of beaten down tone, no answers. We have nothing for you. Move on. We're not talking about it. And David French, to your point, lifting the rock on the entire ruling class, isn't that what MAGA's about? I mean, isn't that taking down these people who have truly controlled everything and opening it up and showing the answers here? And by the way, speaking of answers, Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend, who is in all the pictures that you see with Jeffrey Epstein and all sorts of powerful people, even the president and his wife. There's Ghislaine Maxwell. She's everywhere. And she's in jail right now for helping him in these child sex trafficking crimes. So there are answers to be had in many different ways. And in a way, it's treating MAGA like they're stupid. Like they were wrong this whole time, searching for justice for hundreds of young girls who were abused at the hands of the powerful. Co-founder of Punchbowl News, John Bresnahan, thank you so much for coming on this morning. Appreciate your insights.